All right, let's start. Welcome everyone to today's talk. Today I'm going to talk about the news about government spending to manufacture quantum computers in Brisbane. This was announced 7 days or 10 days ago, roughly, and it was an exciting news for quantum community here in Brisbane. And as the biggest meetup in quantum computing in Brisbane, I decided to have this talk and share some details about the deal and the technology of PsiQuantum, this company that is coming to Brisbane. And in the end, we can have some questions and answers as well. So feel free to put in questions in the chat, but unfortunately, I cannot answer when I'm going over the slide. I will look at them after. So, a little bit about myself, so that's, who's talking about this stuff. So I have 5 years of IT industry experience. I did my PhD at Griffith University on experimental quantum computing with ions. There, I worked on the project to increase the readout process of the ion qubits, and we managed to improve that process, the speed, by almost 3 times. I also worked as a research fellow there, and I worked on theoretical quantum physics projects as well, like theory of entanglements and many-world interpretation of quantum mechanics. Currently, I'm at UQ. I worked on AI for health projects, machine learning foundations, and machine learning for quantum sensing and quantum machine learning. So usually when we say quantum technology, the first thing that comes to mind is quantum computing, but I included this slide to mention that it's much more than that. It's not only quantum computing. Quantum computing is one of the hardest and can be very revolutionary, but a lot of other things are quantum. We already have a lot of quantum stuff, and it's already affecting our lives. So one of them is quantum sensing. Using the laws of quantum mechanics, you can build much better sensors for everything. For example, for medical imaging or mining to discover material. Also, atomic clocks are quantum technology. They're very accurate, and one example that they are using is GPS. Lasers are quantum, and again, they're everywhere. Solar cells, and also we have quantum cybersecurity. So very close to quantum computing, but it's regarding secure communication using laws of quantum physics, and it doesn't need a full-blown quantum computer. There are already companies here in Australia that are selling quantum security devices. So I included this picture. This is a bit old. This is what Chief Scientist of Australia shared 2 years ago, and it's a list of quantum companies in Australia. So many of you might not know that we have this many quantum companies already, and this list is not full because a few others have been added in the last 2 years, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what we have in Australia. I very briefly explain what quantum computing is, because this is a general meetup and a lot of you might not work in quantum computing or quantum physics field. It's very rough, not technically fully accurate, but it gives you an idea of what we have. Let's imagine that we have 2 qubits here. If these were bits, we could only make one of them 0 or 1 and the other one also only 0 or only 1. Using that, I would be able to set this 2-bit memory to one of these 4 states. So it either can be 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, or 1, 1. So one of these. But when I have 2 qubits, I can set each qubit to every point in this sphere. And then if I measure it, if it's closer to 0 where I set it, most probably I get 0. If it's directly up, for sure I get 0. And if it's lower down, it's most probably I get 1. Sometimes I get 0. And then the two work together. So using that, I can sort of store 4 numbers here, 2 to the power of 2. And if I have 100 qubits, I can store 2 to the power of 100 numbers. It's a huge exponential increase in memory capacity. And then also laws of quantum mechanics, you can roughly say that you can do some kind of parallel computing for some of important computational stuff. And then you can do hugely faster than normal computers. I guess that's enough for the scope of this talk. We go to the next one, leading quantum technologies. I included 3 technologies, 3 companies. Do not consider that as like a fair representation of the power of the company. It's basically more based on the news and hype rather than fairly comparing all the technologies, but just to give you a snapshot of what we have. Superconducting qubits are the most famous one. IBM Osprey, for example, is one of them, 433 qubits, and they reported in 2022 that the quantum volume is 2 to the power of 9. This means that you can have a circuit that has 9 qubits, and then you do 9 operations, and then circuit is able, with the errors and everything, able to run that algorithm with very high probability. But if they do increase the depth and width to 10, then they fail. So this is the record of the biggest circuit they actually can do. And this is a lot dependent on the errors of the qubit. So they have a lot, but they can't really, with the errors that they have, they can't really do huge circuit. This is a crude number, like a number to rank them, but for general purposes, it's not too bad. The other very famous one is ion qubit. I myself work on this one at Griffith University. So Quantinuum now has 30 qubits, and very recently, a month ago or so, I guess, they claimed 2 to the power of 20 quantum volume. Means that they can run an algorithm that requires roughly 20 qubits, and then they can do 20 operations on them. Another one, important one, is photonic qubits. Xanadu, this is a Canadian company. In 2020, they claimed 2 to the power of 8 for quantum volume. 2022, they introduced 216 qubits, but they didn't report this. They moved on to other numbers, but I didn't want to go to too much detail. Also, IBM, end of 2023, they released a 1,000 qubits quantum computer. They didn't report this. Again, they moved on to other ways of measuring it, but it's not really much better than this one because errors are high. Okay, we had a lot of hype and also a very fierce race to just reach quantum supremacy. in simple words, quantum supremacy is doing some task on your quantum computer that supercomputers cannot do, or it takes them very, very long time to do it. And currently, there are many algorithms that you can use. Some of them, so roughly speaking, only shows that your device is quantum. It's not like that. You have so much noise. You think that you have a quantum device, but it's not quantum. So most of the tests now, including this one that I shared here, done by Google in 2019, is sort of that kind of task. Is a lot of other algorithms that are more practical, still far away. We can't really run on these kind of computers. So 2019, Google said that, okay, this task that shows this computer is quantum, I was able to run it on my quantum computer in 200 seconds. And then they estimated that for the biggest supercomputer that we have, it will take 10,000 years. And this is sort of a fair claim of a quantum supremacy if the second claim was correct. But recently, in 2022, people in laboratory for theoretical physics in China, they showed that there is a classical way to simulate this system, and they improved it, and they were able to do it in a few hours. So 200 seconds, few hours, it's not quantum supremacy. So it's very controversial, that thing, but yeah, there have been some failed claims of supremacy, and sort of people still say that we don't have it. It's just too much noise in these computers. And confirmation of that is that IBM is planning to work on smaller computers with less noise rather than expanding number of qubits more and more. And if I go back here and show you this, Quantinuum, only 30 qubits, and is beating this 433 by far, because errors are much lower here. I show you some errors about Quantinuum because I will compare them with Psi quantum. Let me have a look at the time, not too rapid. Psi quantum technology. They work with photons. They make these boards with silicon. It's a very conventional technology. That's a very positive things about them, that they use something that doesn't need inventing again. So this is the same thing that you use all the other chips with. And then what they do is, it's a slightly different type of computing. It is called measurement-based. On the same chip, they generate some photons, they do some operation on them, and then they measure them a few times. And there is a technical way to get computation out of that. And then one advantage that they have is that they can transport this quantum state from one chip to the other. So this is not limited to them. For example, ion traps, there is also this plan to do this, but you need to transform your atomic quantum state into a photonic state, and then transport it into other quantum computer, which they have the advantage that their qubit is already a photon, so they can do it a bit easier. And then they are planning to put lots of these chips and then connect them like this together. And then they're claiming that by 2029, they will have 1 million qubit fault-tolerant quantum computer. And they're guessing that roughly that means 1,000 logical qubit. What is logical qubit? It's just because there are noise, and then if you want to make sure that your calculation is correct, you need a lot of redundant qubits. So with this 1 million qubit, they can do computations that an ideal 1,000 qubit quantum computer can do. And 1,000 in quantum is very big. It's just, don't assume that it's small, because you have like 2 to the power of 1,000 is number of states that you can have. It's enormous. But they already pushed this promise by a few years. So a few years later, I saw a snapshot on the internet that claimed this. It's, if I'm not wrong, 2026, but apparently they pushed it further. So that is a little bit of problem of hype and over-promising in quantum technology, which is a bit worrying. Some very prominent researchers at universities are worrying that because of this, we might have a quantum winter. So we had AI winter before. So we had some breakthrough in AI, and people promised that they can do a lot of practical things with it. They couldn't achieve it mainly because of the hardware limitations, and then funding for AI both at university and industry went down for a while until picked up again, and then now we have like very useful AI hardware and software. So yeah, people are a bit worried that promising like this in something that is so hard to build is a bit not wise. But if that's the way to get the money, I mean, if the culture is like that, the company that has like more promises get more money, everybody is sort of forced to do that. But it is nevertheless it's a risky investment. It doesn't mean that they never get there. That's also, there is a very small possibility that we never get there. Some people say that, yeah, if you increase the number of qubits, there might be something fundamental about noise that doesn't allow us. It's relatively unlikely for that to happen, but even if there is no fundamental limit, technically, it's a hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do. So you might try something, and if it's not successful, you might try something else. You learn and try something else, and then eventually it might take you longer to get there. So PsiQuantum still doesn't have a quantum computer. Therefore, they don't report like quantum volume or anything like that about computation. What they do is they claim that this chip, I'm working on this chip and making it better and better. What they report is the accuracy of their chip. And then they say that, look, if I put a lot of these together, I can do amazing things. They already have 2 test facilities in the UK and the US to put some of these together and do some tests. And after this announcement, the plan is to do the actual final one here in Brisbane, which is very exciting. I quickly show you the accuracies for Quantinuum ion qubit, which is sort of the best computer now. So single qubit fidelity is 99.9955. It's very high. Ion qubits, they are very accurate in doing gates, especially single qubit gates. And there's also like some preparation error, and this, you can sort of compare this with this one. And so slightly they have better preparation error, but then their preparation error is sort of the same as single qubit fidelity, but in ion qubit, you can prepare it once and then do a lot of computations. And then 2-qubit gate fidelity, 99.795. Here, Bell fidelity is sort of the same thing, 99.22. So you see that ions are much better. But the problem with ions is it's not easy to get a lot of ions, just trap them and then work on them. Expanding is not easy. But nevertheless, it's one of the very promising ones. So photons, superconducting, and ions are leading now. There are a lot of others, and nobody knows. Maybe some of them win. It's just exploring. So we have reason to pick these. but then in the end, we can't really guess which one wins. What else do I have? The company itself. So founded in 2016 by 4 people. These are all university professors in Bristol University and Imperial College London. Jeremy O'Brien and Terry Rudolph, they are originally Australian. Terry Rudolph did his PhD at UQ, for example. I've met him in one of the conferences at UQ, and we had a chat about PsiQuantum as well. So yeah, they like Australia to have a piece of this project. Who is funding that? BlackRock is a US investing company. Billy Gifford, that's Scottish. Microsoft Venture Fund M12 has funded that. US federal funding for quantum computing research and development. They had a collaboration with Air Force Research Laboratory, DARPA, the Defense Institute of US funded them. UK government helped them build a test center in the UK, and the last one, Australian government, the topic of this talk. So federal and Queensland government together are contributing $940 million. So have a look at the valuation of these companies. So PsiQuantum is the first in the world. Currently, 3.2 billion is the valuation. The closest one is IonQ, 1.81 billion, D-Wave 221 million, Rigetti 202, and Zapata AI is the new famous one, 40 million. So this is by far like better than many other, like at least, I mean, they have their internal processes and they share some of the stuff and some others are company secrets. And then based on that, people need to do valuation and it's a risky business. So you can't really fully trust these numbers because yeah, it's just with limited information on something that is very hard to achieve. People do their valuation. What is the news? Australia signs deal worth almost 1 billion with PsiQuantum to build world's first useful quantum computer. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, let's have a look at website of Ed Husick, Minister for Industry and Science. So this is how he shared the news. The joint Commonwealth Queensland investment includes approximately 470 million equity and loans for each government. So 470 federal and 470 Queensland. And it's the only detail that is shared is equity and loans, but no other details of how they are going to spend it over the years, how much is equity, how much is loaned. They didn't share it. So what's the deal? What they expect PsiQuantum to do? So PsiQuantum promised to establish its Asia-Pacific headquarters in Brisbane. I need to correct, some of you might have seen the description of the talk, and in there I mentioned that they are moving their headquarters here. I was wrong. I got it wrong. Since then I corrected that, but if that's in your mind, that's not correct. So the Asia Pacific headquarters will be in Brisbane, but they build and operate successive generation of its fault-tolerant quantum computer in Brisbane. So their main first site that creates this commercial quantum computer, up to now, this all tests not available to customers, but the first commercial one will be built in Brisbane. And they promise to create 400, this is a rough estimate, local job, and establish partnerships with local quantum industry and advanced manufacturing clusters, create a dedicated climate research center, open new digital and advanced tech supply chain opportunities, invest in university and research collaboration, including PhD position, mentoring, and internship opportunities. This last one is very important for universities. There has been some controversies. So this is Paul Fletcher, science spokesperson for the opposition party. And being in a position in Australia, you always need to nag, but it's not, I can't say that it's fully empty. There is something there. I read a little bit for you. There was no public, transparent expression of interest process to call for applications. So the process was, there was this secret EOI letter sent to some selected companies, Australian ones, and also to PsiQuantum, and then non-disclosure like agreement and stuff like that. And finally, PsiQuantum won. And then PsiQuantum apparently was the only non-Australian. So the other ones were Australian. So let's continue this. But they were required to sign non-disclosure agreements, says Fletcher. And the terms made it look like this had all been written so that PsiQuantum was going to be the win. Fletcher adds that it is particularly troubling that Australian government has chosen to allocate a large amount of funding to a foreign-based quantum computing company rather than homegrown firms. It would be a tragedy if this decision ends up making it more difficult for Australian-based quantum companies to compete for global investment because of a perception that their own government doesn't believe in. There was also a few others. I also shared this one. A lot of others, I don't know them as credible journalists, type of journalists that only nag. But James Riley, I found his article sort of like believable in other matters. So again, he is concerned about this secrecy and then why this is been given to a foreign company rather than Australia. But under the same post, there was this comment from David Hyatt, is economist, policy theorist, and strategist, which I found interesting. So I read that one for you. While there is plenty to question in doing, in doling out 200 million, I don't know why he says 200 million, but anyway, to an offshore firm to come onshore just to attempt to break a record, that in itself is not a breach of the principle of a future made in Australia. A future made in Australia is the scheme that government is using to fund new technologies, including this quantum computing deal was under this scheme. Sometimes the investment requires bringing in a foreign partner, think Anglo-Persian Oil to start Converse Oil Refinery, or General Motors to create Holden. These are two very old examples that they funded a foreign company to come to Australia, but that helped establishing a domestic company to do the same thing. And some positive comments. Stephen Bartlett, he is a professor at University of Sydney, theoretical quantum physics, and he's one of the founders of Quantum Australia. Quantum Australia is this institution that they made to bring together universities and all these startups together, and then they have yearly, there's a very good yearly quantum conference in Sydney, and that's both university people and people from industry present their research and technology. And he says that he welcomes the news. He said that, yeah, the investment that we make needs to be on par. This is about the number that they spend, on par with Google, Microsoft, AWS, or IBM to be able to compete. And then also Almas, he's a general partner at venture capital firm Open Ocean. And they say that this move gives confidence to other investors to invest in other companies at the same company and others. So this ripples through the market. So these are some of the positive comments made about this move. So yeah, it took a bit longer than I expected, but it almost done. So in a few minutes more, and then if there are any questions, we can just discuss them. I repeated this slide again about quantum technologies, quantum computing, quantum sensing, atomic clocks, lasers, solar cells, quantum cybersecurity. So even if quantum computers are not made, it's not achieved like in 5 years or so that we expect them, we learn from them and we attempt again, but that develop technology can help other technologies as well. People who are who will work in this company and gain this expertise to make, for example, silicon chips, and also deal with all these kind of quantum operations. They can build their own companies. They can bring that knowledge to other companies that do other things. So yeah, what I'm saying is that, yes, I think that promises are bloated and then it's dangerous. But even if it's delayed, in general, I welcome this news to investment from governments and companies like IBM, Google, and big companies and big investors that are doing this. Eventually gives us a lot of technology, even if it's not immediately quantum computing. But yeah, there is this risk that promising too much around quantum computing that might lead to some disappointment in investors. Okay, yeah, that was end of my talk. Let's open the chat. So feel free to like unmute yourself and talk, or put a question in the chat. Or if you have a comment, there are a lot of knowledgeable people here, know much more than me. Eric Street, my PhD supervisor, for example. I can see him. Yeah. So yeah, feel free to, if you have any questions, comments, or anything. Okay, what's the right balance between skepticism and optimism in quantum these days? It's a hard question, because it's, as an expert, you have a relatively good estimate of what you can and what you cannot do in a few years. But if you be totally honest, for a non-expert, that will be so disappointing and they never find you. So you're sort of forced to do a little bit of like being optimist in the plan that you present, but doing very hard, like this year I do this, like 1 million fault-tolerant quantum computing, I guess it's a little bit too far. So I can give you another example. Like imagine a doctor. I don't know if you ever looked at like research papers on drugs, for example. If you look at those side effects and how many times they fail and things like that, if a doctor explained that to a patient, most of the patients never take those be really sincere about all of those, most of the patient might not never take those drugs. So yeah, it's just the probability is not that high, but they exist. The same is like the probability of failing a project. So it's there, and you have sort of an estimate, but then it might fail altogether, that line of thing, or it might drag much more. So yeah, I personally think we shouldn't promise like very hard like deadlines and things like that. Maybe a range. I'd say that in the next 5 to 8 years, I achieved this, for example. But that's my idea. I mean, I never look for capital. If I do that, maybe I learned that, okay, I need to be a bit more bold about my statement. But yeah, that's just my idea. The deal mentioned 400 new jobs. How many of these jobs can be expected to be research position or manufacturing roles? They didn't share uh, details, but I can have a guess. And by comparing to the jobs, for example, that Q Control advertises, maybe half of them are like less than half, like 1/3, maybe 1/3 to half is quantum jobs. Like either you are quantum experimentalist or quantum theorist and directly worked on that. And then in terms of other jobs, yeah, they need a lot of other people. Like they need probably electronic engineers, they need like software programmers, general stuff like human resource, everything that a company needs. And then in terms of like PhDs, again, there is no detail about that, if they're going to give, for example, a scholarship or not. What was on the list was, I guess, let me read that again. Invest in university and research collaboration, including PhD position, mentoring, and internship opportunities. So yeah, internship will be very valuable for students, and yeah, it says including PhD positions, but again, nothing is revealed about the details of that. I'm not sure if they want to keep it secret forever, or just it's too soon. They just announced it and then they need to work on the details and then share it with us. But this was the worry of a lot of like journalists, that why we don't have much details. But hopefully it's just it's a big thing, and then they need more time to just set the deals and reveal it to us gradually. Have the HQ or manufacturing location been disclosed? Interested to know which part of Queensland. No, they said Brisbane, but nothing more. Again, like that's the unclear part of the thing. Nothing more than Brisbane. And yeah, when they said Brisbane, it can also be like for a little bit further away, Gold Coast or Sunshine Coast maybe. But possibly they keep it close to Brisbane because they need a relationship with Brisbane universities, which are very advanced in the quantum research. And then, yeah, I want to emphasize that last 20 years, Australia spent a lot of money on quantum research. And now we have a lot of experts like university professors, postdocs, PhD students that work on different technologies at forefront of the technology and the science. The actual money itself, it's not that big comparing to like China or US. But then considering that the population is a lot smaller here, they have like relatively, they have spent a lot. And then, so yeah, there is a good backup expert pool here. And then it's for a few years that started from Sydney, and now we are seeing it in Brisbane. We have this startup spinning off research projects and trying to make that practical. Any other questions? Okay, thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for joining me. And yeah, any further questions, discussions, and
Yes.
things like that? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It was informative, and I'm pretty new in the quantum computing field, and I'm very interested in it. And is there any recommendation to, or a book or resource to start for
Yes.
the relation between, no, sorry, for the relation for the quantum computing and machine learning or AI specifically?
Yep. So there are very different paths to this one. One is just go like do a PhD in quantum computing. That's one way of doing it, but there are a lot of other ways. If you want to just increase your personal knowledge, you can look at IBM tutorials, and then maybe you join Qiskit community. That's one way, and then through that you will be introduced to other people who work in this field, and then yeah, with many technical backgrounds, you really don't need to actually go do a physics degree. The other way is some universities, including UQ, now they have masters in quantum technology. I'm not sure about Griffiths yet, but yeah, I know that UQ has that. That's another way of not doing a full PhD, but then still have a degree, like a shorter one, so that you can. But yeah, again, that's not necessary. You can just do like your own reading as well, and you can also look for, if you are, for example, a computer scientist, a programmer, these related degrees, you can look for jobs that a quantum company advertises in those fields, and go there and work, and while working learn more about the quantum side as well, and then get involved in those ones. So yeah, that's some of the suggestion that I can have. Not a problem. Yeah, so yeah, thanks again for joining. If you have any questions, you can again contact me on LinkedIn or Meetup. Check both of them, and then yeah, and please join the next talks. I usually have 2 to 3 talks during the year. Yeah, thanks very much.